Alrighty, everybody. This is Taylor McLean with Century 21 Prosperity and Tina Swonger with Remax Properties and leader of the Peak Success team. And this is the Team TNT Radio podcast. Let's get into today's episode.
I am so excited. I have not met Stephanie Henderson yet, but I just got a brief account of who she is. And I am so excited to learn everything, just like the rest of you, all about Stephanie. And she's already giving me advice about how to finish my book. It's so awesome. So, Stephanie, tell us about yourself. Let's get right into it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me to be part of your podcast. And I'm so looking forward to just building relationships with both of you already. I am the CEO of Keller Williams Client's Choice, and we have all right around 200 agents here. It has been a thrilling and surprising ride for me in leadership here. Real estate is not my background. My background is in nonprofit, senior level executive operations. And this door just opened, honestly. And I was just sharing a coffee with another agent, and when she asked me what I did at Keller Williams, and I told her, I just start laughing about it. I'm like, this is just the biggest surprise of my life. But I truly feel like I found my people because we think alike, we operate alike, and it's just, I love a challenge. And I think we can all agree within the real estate industry right now, we have lots of those surrounding us everywhere. I am a professional speaker and author and coach, all the fun things. Mom, Bella, I'm a grandmother and love my family a whole lot. So,
Oh my goodness.
Native of New Orleans, Louisiana. I have to throw that in. So there we go.
How'd you land here in Colorado?
Oh, there was a little rainstorm called Hurricane Katrina that went through New Orleans, and we relocated our entire family 2 weeks after the storm and I'm a native of New Orleans. So it was quite surprising, but here we are 19 years later. It's hard to believe it's been 19 years, but
yeah. Wow. Oh my God. That's incredible. You didn't happen to stay at the Cascade Hills Motel by chance, did you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Maybe
I should.
I used to own that, and right after Katrina, I went down to give blood at the American Red Cross because I found out from my accountant that they were embezzling from me, and I was losing a ton of money, and I was so depressed. When I get depressed, I want to give back to something or do something nice because I get depressed and then it'll go down a rabbit hole if I don't do something different. So I tried to give blood and found out I actually had the hepatitis A antibodies and I couldn't even give blood.
Oh,
but I went out to the parking lot and I saw all these cars trying to get aid and assistance through, not that you were, but I'm just saying this was so amazing because all of the people that were there, I was so depressed. I was like, oh my gosh, I own this motel right up the street that's vacant, that has been absolutely, devastated with embezzling from my managers. And I went into the front desk and I said, who are all these people? And she said, they're all from Hurricane Katrina. I sent them all up to the hotel. And then I folded the doors. I gave it back to the bank. It was just, I am so grateful though. Life, what a twist. What a twist.
It's a surprise. I feel like my life is a surprise story. Just one.
How beautiful is that? Your whole family, you moved here. I mean, I know you were successful even back then, and I'm sure that
I had my own business back then. I was doing speaking and conferences, and all of my network on my client base was in the Gulf South. So when we moved here, my business was gone. So I had to start completely over, not knowing one person here, and certainly not accustomed to the weather or the shoes here or the spices or lack of here. So it was an interesting time, but we love it. We absolutely love Colorado Springs, and this is home. Yes, home for now. So
What do you speak on?
I do a lot of speaking on leadership, on self, on identity. I'm going to say my biggest platform is probably identity, because I feel like we have an idea of who we are as a child, and then life happens, and I like to say the mirror of the reflection of who we thought we were gets broken or it gets moved, and and then we have to discover who we are all over again. And I think there's real power in understanding that you have strengths, that God has given you an assignment, that you have a purpose that is so much bigger than you, but with those three things, you will never realize it if you only remain in your comfort zone. That our greatest potential and our greatest strength is found outside of being comfortable, and it's a tough place to be, but it's necessary. It's necessary for becoming who you're ultimately meant to be.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's definitely true for a lot of women specifically, but also for me right now, I'm definitely going through a transitionary period of where I feel like who I thought I am or who I think I am is changing and adjusting to the height of these waves, like things are moving right now in my life, and that's okay. And it's okay to endure that and be at peace with that, because even though I don't know necessarily where this is going, I do have peace in the fact that God is with me and he has a plan, and it's okay to trust him. And it's also very important, I think, for women to find their identity in Jesus. When you don't know who you are, when you're really struggling, you can always call on Jesus and he will always remind you of who you are to him
Yeah.
and the plans he has for you.
I could not agree more. And I think some of the times, we wonder why we go through trials and why we go through difficult things. I think it's a lot of times, I think it's God like uncovering things within us, going, wait, there's so much more to you that you are not even aware of. And unless I allow this trial that's going to remove all your comfort, or it's going to make you really, really depend upon me for everything, you're never going to find it. And so I think I think that's just how we learn. I mean, if we learn the easy way, wouldn't that be great? I don't. I don't.
I
I
don't
only
either.
learn when I'm in the, like, okay, you have my full attention right now, because nothing is in my control right now. So,
My
I,
dad he always said, Tina, why do you have to learn everything the hard way? He said, I don't know, Dad. I don't know.
I just think we do, for whatever reason. But I've always really loved challenging leaders. And when I say leaders, I really believe everyone has leadership inside of them.
Mhm.
I do. I think that they have to just really having someone that has a voice to believe in them and say, I believe you can do this, and let me challenge you to be better. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do as leaders, is not to just make people feel great about themselves, which I love doing that. I love encouraging all day long, but it's really seeing some blind spots and seeing some places that I'm like, I think there's more inside of you there. Um, and not worrying so much about what they think about me. Like, okay, what are they going to think about me if I challenge them in an area? It's because I'm thinking more about the best for them than I'm thinking about myself. And that's just a perspective change. That's
I could tell that from you right away. I could.
good. Well, it's taken me a long time to get there, Tina. It has. So,
And I'm really curious. So, as far as your journey, your own personal journey, and finding yourself speaking to other women and other people, other leaders about self-identity, and how did you find yourself in this position?
That's a great question. I went through a a really tumultuous time as a young adult. And I mean, there was no idea. I remember I was in counseling. I had an eating disorder that was out of control. And I went to counseling, and I had a really, really great counselor. And he sat down with me and said, "Okay, Steph, I'm going to hand you a sheet of paper. And on this sheet of paper, I want you to write down who you are. Write down the definition of who you are." And in all sincerity, I looked at him and I said, "Who is it that you want me to be?" I could not fill out, I mean, I sat there with this blank piece of paper and I honestly had no idea. And that began a journey for me as God healed me, as I got some really great tools to cope with, not compensating in a destructive way, but really, getting my life together, God healing places in my heart. I realized that I was not the only one that had a blank sheet of paper in front of them. And so what I did, and it was scary for me at the beginning, was I began just sharing my story. And I talked about having this struggle in my life for a long time. And what I realized is that people didn't talk about the real stuff.
Right.
They talked about what they want people to think about them. I mean, think about social media. My photos are not from me when I wake up in the morning with my hair on top of my head and I look deranged. I don't put those photos on social media. Same way is that we put filters of what we want people to believe about us. And there's not really anything wrong with that, because let's be honest, everybody doesn't need to see all of it all at once. I mean, that's only God can handle all that, right?
Yeah.
But there's power, there's power in vulnerability. And there's power in telling your story, because your story will speak to someone else's circumstance, and you are like, it's like you're lending strength to them for what they're going through. And so I just made the decision that I wasn't going to be fake and phony and present my life as some perfect, Skittles and rainbows and unicorns. It was like, no, I'm a mess. I'm a mess, but here's how I'm getting through it. Here's the choices that I'm making. Here's the resources I've placed in my life. And to my surprise, I began sharing that just a little at a time with just a handful of people. And then I taught a class on vulnerability. And I mean, I just wrote the curriculum myself. I just began teaching it. And it went from having like 5 people maybe that were part of it, to 100, to thousands, to having spoken internationally and nationally. And that's really been my platform, is just talk about victory that comes sometimes at really high stakes. We often talk about victory. We often talk about all the great things that we accomplish. We seldom talk about the cost associated with doing the courageous things that I feel God calls us to do. And so I really say telling the truth and telling my story. And, if I did not have the Lord in my life, I don't know where I would be. I could not do anything really without the presence and the provision of God in my life. And so there's hope. There's hope in my story.
And that's why it's so awesome that you're sharing your story. I'm just at the very beginning, just coming off of healing to share my story. And your story encourages me to continue. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, because really, I mean, think about it. If you just talk about the hard stuff that you go through and there's no hope, you're no better than a talk show, daytime television talk show.
Or a victim.
Or a victim. And I was like, I refuse to be a victim, and so, and I've walked through some things. I could be the poster child for a victim if I wanted to, But I just always, inside of me, I feel like God instilled the belief that, as long as I am still drawing breath, and God has purpose even in my pain, has purpose even in the trials. And I've seen that be a powerful platform in my life for over 25 years at this point.
It's a hard thing to be able to overcome these trials and overcome tests that are thrown into your life,
Mhm.
but it's also really important to remember in those moments that God is with you and He will give you the strength that you need, even when you don't have it. All you have to do is just lean on Him and ask Him for help and receive the help, and
Yeah.
but I'm really curious, Stephanie, as far as the trials and things that you've overcome in your life,
Mhm.
how did you make it through those things, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
I was very, very suddenly widowed when much younger, as a young woman. And I had 3 children, and my late husband was diagnosed with leukemia and died 3 days after his diagnosis, and just very suddenly. And so my world was rocked, to say the least. But what I have to say about that is that I had no idea of the strength that the Lord had for me in that. I felt, you would think I would just be shattered on the floor. I was grieved. Obviously, I was grieving, and I did grieve, but I could make decisions. I had a rational mind. I was, I, I, I was like even amazed at myself. And I knew that that was only because of the Lord's presence in my life. And, interesting, because a lot of times we applaud strength, but nowhere in scripture does the Bible say that we are called to be strong. It says his strength is perfected in our weakness, that vulnerable place. That's when we see strength. And it's supernatural. It's not ours. Because trust me, if it was up to me, I'd probably still be in a puddle somewhere on the floor. But I think it's just making a decision that you don't want to be a victim the rest of your life. And listen, there was a lot of people in my life at that time that were like, you need to stay home. You need to just take time. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not. I went back to work a week after the funeral. Did I produce anything at work? I didn't. I mean, I was greatly loved, but I was like, I am not going to sit home and become a shell of who I once was, because I've gone through something so difficult. And
And you
so,
had your kids too to take
and I
care of.
had my kids, and I felt like they're taking their cues from me. Here's the thing is, whenever we go through really difficult things, there's not a manual written for it. We don't know how to do it, because think about it. Everybody's situation is so different, and the way that we respond to trauma, the way we respond to grief is so individualized that you have to, there's not a way through it that's like, okay, follow these 3 steps and you'll be there. I would have done it.
Mhm.
But I think that's where you just have to decide within yourself that you're going to choose to believe. And here's the secret to that. You choose to believe for that day, or even sometimes that moment. I'm going to breathe. I'm just going to breathe. Because if your imagination wants to take you off to what's going to happen in 15 years, what's going to happen in 10 years, and you start imagining all these terrible scenarios, you will remain paralyzed. And so one of the things that I learned very early was, okay, just today, or maybe just for this hour, just breathe. Okay. And the other thing was, what ifs produce fear. Like, what
Yeah.
if that happens? What if I can't financially support my family? What if what if I don't make it? What if I die in a car crash? I mean, all of the crazy things that we can.
It could happen tomorrow.
I could get hit by a bus. I don't know why. A side note, why do we use that? How many people do you know that's actually been hit by a bus? I don't know anyone. Anyway, I digress. Be hit by a bus. It could be me. If it is, then you can say Stephanie said it here. She got hit by a bus.
And then it happened.
And here I go under the bus. But when we take the what if that is fear-based and we turn it into and if this happens, see, that utilizes a different side of your brain. That goes into problem solving. What if is in fear, and if scenarios go into problem solving, and if this happens, okay, I've been through worse, is what I say to myself. No, okay, well, I survived X, Y, and Z. Now I'm going to survive that. So, I mean, all of those things were just little pieces of what helped me day by day by day by day see that my life was meant for something else besides tragedy or sorrow or grief. And so that's like a short answer to that really great question, Taylor.
So, follow-up question.
Sure. Yes.
I really love what you said about changing your mindset away from fear, because I feel like I'm definitely a worrywart, and I definitely come up with all the scenarios, right? And I'm just sitting there, just like you said, paralyzed, just going through, oh, plan B, C, whatever. But I think it's also really important to remember that fear doesn't come from God. Like that's not what we're called to do. We're not called to be fearful.
Right.
And I think that that's really life-changing when you can realize there's no need to be afraid. And even in those darkest times where you're really going through, a depression or anxiety, things like that, which I've definitely personally struggled with. And I do feel like it's kind of a lifelong thing, depression, anxiety. I feel like you can never really fully overcome it, it's just something that kind of sticks with you, unfortunately. But if you just remember in those moments, like, you're not called to be fearful, you're called to have peace and know that your future, there's a plan in place, and it's okay for you to not be in control all the time, because I think that's also something that I really struggle with, is trying to have my hand in everything at once
Mhm.
when I can't do that. I'm not an octopus. I don't have like five clones of myself that I can just send off to do chores and run errands for me. Like, there's only one of me, and that's okay. And it's okay not to feel like you're always in control. And I feel like once you really let go and you trust God,
Mhm.
things just kind of work out. And as far as when you're meeting other women and other people as you go on your speaking engagements and just in life, what are some of the things that you've identified that people really struggle with in their self-identity? Like, I think earlier in the conversation you mentioned that there are blind spots that maybe we're not completely aware of. What are some of those things that you've identified in your journey?
I think that one of the things I've identified is that I have no idea. I mean, I know that sounds so simplistic, but I think a lot of times, think about it, we frame our success in life based on someone else's success. Like, this is who I want to be like, or this is what I want to achieve in my life. And we look at other people's lives as a model, and there's not really anything wrong with that. That's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
However, those people that we're looking at or even comparing ourselves to, or even, want to emulate, are not always what God intended when he created you. Because we have to remember, we are one of a kind and we have been created by the creator. God does not have, track houses. We're not track people. We're not like, okay, Stephanie and Taylor and Tina are all going to have the same floor plan, but she's going to have different countertops. Tina's going to have bigger bathrooms. Taylor's going to have amazing outdoor space, but they all look, no. See, we cannot understand what God has placed within us apart from him. And so I think in scripture, when it talks about casting down every imagination that raises itself up into the obedience of Christ, I think we have to look at ourselves too and say, am I stifling myself by saying, here's a box that I need to fit in, or here's someone that if I can be like this and dress like this and look like this, I mean, maybe, but I feel like you just sell yourself short in that. And instead looking at and saying, okay, God, what is it that you have placed inside of me that is so amazing that you designed me just for this? What is that? And here's the thing. I think a lot of times too, I think we got really locked in with here's the one thing that I have to do my whole life. You know, it's just think like when you're back in kindergarten. What do you want to be when you grow up? Are you? I mean, I do this little survey at my conferences. I'm like, how many of you actually have achieved exactly what you wanted to be in kindergarten? Very few. There's some, but the thing of it is that you may lead differently in one stage of life than you lead in another stage of life. There may be something around the corner that is waiting for you to come through the season that you're in order to experience it. And I think a lot of times what happens to us, honestly, is especially when we are in places of disappointment, we can believe, okay, this is my end. This is a dead end. And it is not. We have all got to go through, as leaders, we all have to go through seasons of wilderness, because what it does is it helps define you. It helps you be creative in places that you would not. When it's easy, you don't have to be creative. It also places you, it kind of like, it's like when the tide comes in, the tide goes out, it pushes you to a different place. And so you have to just continue to be persistent and press through it, because we have no idea. If you would have told me back in 2005, before Hurricane Katrina, when I was living in Louisiana, living my best life, my business is thriving. I had a full ministry team working with me. I had speaking engagements booked for a year solid, that within a few short weeks, that would all be uprooted and I would be in Colorado. I, I would have bet money and would have lost. And so, I say, don't look at the journey as the end all. You have to look at it as something that continues to be in process.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
flexible.
And I do think about that a lot. Like how you said, it's okay to not have all the answers. Like it's okay to not know.
Right.
And I do think that a lot of us do really try to focus on finding answers that we're not supposed to know the answer to, because we're our mental capacity is nowhere near that of God. Like we're not even mentally capable of understanding a lot of things, probably more things than we are even aware of.
Right.
And that's okay. And that's why we need him. And not knowing, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of life is it's okay if there's surprises. It's okay if you're caught off guard. And I think that's something that is just part of our testimony.
I could not agree more, Taylor. Well said.
I think that this definitely goes hand in hand with your recent book, Stephanie, about perfectionism and again, just being okay with not knowing what's going to happen next and just not always having the blueprint of your life just in front of you all the time. And I do think us, especially Christians in general, I feel like we're always trying to search for, I call it like a secret knowledge. Like we go on YouTube, we go on Google, we read all these articles online, like we're searching for the
Clues.
answers. Yeah, clues. We're searching for answers to our problems, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that it's really important just to listen to God and hear him when he's speaking to you and filtering out that noise that we allow, into our mind, into our heart, into our soul when it's just noise, and God, he will always answer in his own time, not always immediately, which is
Never
okay.
ends.
But but he answers at the right time. And you may be like, "Oh my gosh, like I prayed this prayer so many times and nothing has happened." And you may,
Mhm.
lose faith, like in all honesty. Like you may
Yeah.
just be like, "Oh, he's forgotten about me." But I think that it's important to not always go and try to, like, you can't always lean on this secret hidden knowledge that you think is out there to try to like figure out, who you are and what your life is going to look like. I think you have to balance that with just trust and
Mhm.
knowing that what needs to happen will happen in its own time. But
Mhm.
I definitely wanted to talk about that because from a perfectionist standpoint, I
Mm.
mean, you want to have everything planned out. You want to know everything, you want to be perfect, you want to be that person that has all the answers. So could you talk about kind of how you came to writing your book and and how
I
all of that?
No, of course. And I think behind um perfectionism at its core is a sense of control. You want to control the narrative. You want to control what people think about you. You want to control how you look. You want to control all these aspects that really, we're not in control. But I think perfectionism lends itself to like really a stronghold of control, if you will. And I, being just who I am, I love people. I love people well. I want people to love me. I want people to like me. And what I found many years ago was that as much as I wanted to have all these relationships and it was a lot of it was one-sided. When you are a people pleaser, you will look around and find people who are more than willing to have you make all of their dreams come true. But if you really stop and look at it, you see very little investment being reciprocated. And you can't control what other people do. And I don't think you should change who you are just because other people have their own issues. That's, you'd have to just go live in a cave somewhere and be by yourself. But the truth of the matter is that when you are really, really focused on perfectionism and people pleasing, you will not, you will not take chances. You will not say yes to new things. You will not say no. Bigger one is that you won't say no because you don't want people to be upset with you. You don't want them to, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to deal with, the outlash of saying no. But what happens is when your yeses and your nos are controlled by the people around you and the people that are in relationship with you, what happens is they will actually end up guiding your life rather than you leading your own life. And so to be able to lead your own life, you have got to lay those things down and say, it'd be nice if you agree with me, but I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do regardless. It'd be nice if you like me, but okay, you know, if you don't like me because I'm not doing something the way you want me to, rather than fulfilling the assignment on my own life, then I can't help you. And I will tell you the most three powerful words that have come out of my mouth in all these years have been, I don't care. I don't care. My grandmother used to have a saying, you can get glad in the same pants you got mad in. Okay. It's not that, and understand this is not like you don't care about people or you don't care about relationships, but you cannot care more about what other people are thinking that you should be rather than obeying what God has called you to be. I mean, where would Moses be if he listened to popular opinion? I mean, my goodness, they'd still be
There
wandering.
are people who are adversarial just to be adversarial on purpose.
Yes. Yes. And there's people when you're soaring or you're beginning to rise, they will shoot you in the back and take you out. And so you have to get to the place where you're like, I care about you, but I cannot care about what you think more than what I care about what God has called me to. And so when I say to people, oh, Stephanie, you're someone and they're upset because of, and they're doing something wrong. I'm like, I don't care. We're going to do the right thing regardless. I can't care about that. Not that, like I said, it's not that I don't care about people. I care about people. But
Right.
you are responsible. We are responsible for leading our own lives. God expects us to lead our own lives. That's why he gave it to us. And so I feel like, you have to just decide, who do you want to please more? Everyone around you, or please God? Well,
Ooh, mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I think like especially as women, we always want to look our best and do our best and be the best mom, be the best caregiver, all these things. And it's really impossible to be that perfect person, that perfect woman. It's just we we can't be perfect. It's just not in our it's not in our being. It's a hard thing to swallow when you try so hard. You try your best every day, but yeah, it's just something that you kind of have to come to terms with, and it can be difficult to kind of cope with that, but that's why community like this, like us talking about this topic is important, is we need to be leaning on each other. We can't go through life alone and we can't struggle alone. Like we're also not made to do that either. We need each other. Yeah, and that's why it's just important for especially us women to have that community to lean on when you're feeling hopeless like that.
well, that's true. And I'll finish by saying this, that you have to have other people in your life that have done bigger things than you have done, that have believed for bigger things than you have believed. Like if it's not that I don't value other people's opinions, but let me talk to the one who's really been in the trenches and who's come through the fire and has got, the burn marks and the wounds and the scars, and they keep running.
Singed
That's,
hair.
yeah, the singed hair. Give me those people. Now they get credibility, but if they haven't, okay, you can have ideas, but you don't really get an opinion in my life. Not that, they can't speak into my life, but you have to be really selective, especially when you're called to lead and you're called to an assignment. To stay on task, you've got to have soldiers with you. That means they've been in the battle. And so those people are hard to find, which is why I've begun organizations for people that we come together, just like the three of us are talking today, and we get it. I don't have to explain this to either of you. You girls get it. And so
I'll
these are,
grab any woman's hand and say, come on, let's go. We got work to do.
yeah. And
Do
it's
this together.
also,
Let's hold each other up and support each other and make each other just that much better.
and it's hard to find, sadly. But
Yeah.
when you find them, it's okay. Just one person in your life that's speaks challenges, speaks truth into your life and challenges
With love.
with love. Yeah, we don't need mean
I
girls.
talk smack to myself enough. I don't need somebody else talking smack.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Wow. This is amazing. Oh my gosh.
So
Do
you're
you
going to
have
put all the links to her books and such, and any classes you have coming up, any coaching arrangements, websites, TikTok, all your social medias, everything. We want it all.
Thank you. I think it's all on my website. If not,
Yeah.
Taylor, I'll be glad to send all the links and everything to you. But this has just been a delight. I'm so glad to have spent time with both of you. This is fun.
Yes. Thank you
So
so
where
much.
are you working out of? Are you out of Denver?
Colorado Springs.
You're in Colorado. Why haven't I met you before?
I don't know. We should meet. Why
Gosh,
haven't we?
yeah, let's do deals together and make money. Sell houses and
Make money. Yes, get a check.
right.
Yes.
I love this.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah, we want to support you in every way we can, Stephanie. And
100%.
I'll put your website and everything in the description. And how about you share the name of your most recent book or books for people to look at to help them through a lot of the topics we talked about today.
My latest book is called A Girl's Guide to Being Fabulous. And on the cover, it has the word perfect scratched out and it has fabulous. And that is on people pleasing and perfectionism. And like I like to say, I have a PhD in that. So that was a fun book to write. That was the easy one. I've written a book on grief that's called Her Heart is Torn. And I've written that out of my own pits of grief. And I was walking through grief, the times I've walked through grief, I didn't really have good resources. And so I just told my story, and that's been a hard one, but a good one to write. I've written a book and a study guide on identity that's called Unforgettable, God's Relentless Heart for His Daughters. I've also written a marriage devotion for couples. And I've written a women in leadership study book and study that I've taught women's leadership. So
Wow.
I've got a couple more in me, but I've got to get busy and write those. But anyway, but all of those are on my website. I'll send you all that, Taylor.
That's awesome. I just love how not only are you talking about all of these incredible topics, but you're talking about them in the context of Jesus and our faith. And I just love that. In that context, I mean, that's so amazing and supportive to so many people. So I will have links to all of that in the description. And oh my gosh, thank you so much, Stephanie. This was amazing. And
thank you. I'm so glad we could do this. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. I'm honored to be with both of you. So thank you.
You have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's listened. Thank you.